All right, 3, 2. Clean.
I like how you leaned into that one too because you don't have a microphone today. So we'll just tell the people.
I've got some mic situations. But
you feel better.
Back. Oh, we're back. Oh, yeah.
You feel better. Guys, no one's going to cough this episode. Well,
maybe.
Yeah, no one's going to cough, hopefully. But we are back, and there is so much news.
There is. I do want to start with our friends at Municipal. I do want to start. Sometimes you just want to start. Like, for someone that works in words all day, I'm so bad at them.
Sometimes
like
I
that.
think.
Nah, just clip it, dude. Just
clip it.
I mean,
Kramer.
We don't need. We
want to be serious, but we're not.
No, this is a very serious podcast with very serious thoughts, but sometimes
today, yes,
the content just flows, and that is, what can I say?
I think it happened because today's content is so serious. We are going to get into the fact that the greatest college football coach to ever live retired, Arizona, all those things. First and foremost, we do have to talk about our friends at Municipal.
Yeah, they wished me happy birthday this week. So did you, by the way. Thank you. But Municipal, who is everywhere at this point, which I love. Thanks for the birthday shout out. Municipal.com, no punch 20 to get 20% off your first order. I can tell you because the weather here has been horrendous. I have worn out my Municipal sweatshirts, and they are lovely and they are amazing. I'm going to bitch about the weather later on. But I'm also still scared to wear my Municipal shoes because I don't want to ruin them. And the weather here is just sucks and annoying. So we will find a time and place. I got a trade show next week. I'm thinking those are going to be good, like
trade show
shoes. Youthful dad, like trying to look good. Trade show shoes. You know what I mean? Like day
trying
3
to look
trade
cool.
Show shoe. Yeah. Every time I've worn them, I've gotten a lot of compliments.
So I will say, at Municipal, when they sent me stuff, they also sent me sweatshirts for my brother and for my boyfriend. And the other day, my boyfriend came over and my brother was wearing his sweatshirt, and so was my boyfriend. They're like, "Hey, nice sweatshirt." Different colors, but it was a very funny moment. Today, I am not rocking Municipal only because I have to represent the University of Arizona today. So if you're not watching on YouTube, I'm wearing an Arizona sweatshirt, proudly representing this A. Because we'll get into it. Obviously, there's some stuff we want to talk about, but I guess let's just go right into Nick Saban. It has been a week since he has retired, and we were recording this. It was surprising, I guess, like shocking in the way that it happened and how quickly it all happened. But what are your initial thoughts? Where were you when you found out? How did you find out? How did that all go down for you?
Well, it's funny because I think when this stuff happens, like, I'll bring you into the equation. Like, you and I, like, we have a job to do. So as this stuff happens, I was pretty shocked. Now, Chris Lowe, here's my thoughts. Chris Lowe, who has been embedded in Alabama. It's really funny. I've been down there a lot. More times than not, when I'm at Alabama, Chris Lowe is there, right? Like, there he is. He's sitting in there. But that has become his thing. He's got a really good relationship with Saban. He's got a great relationship with Lane. And so it doesn't surprise me. But when he said it, and I think he was the first to say it, I thought it was, I had to check, like, is this a real human being? Is this a real human? It is. Oh shit. So then you're like, well, could it be wrong? But I know the source, like it's very deliberate the way that this went out. This is how Nick wanted it to go down, by the way, this is his guy. So I was pretty floored. And I think the rest of Twitter was pretty floored. I don't know about you. And then I was sad. But first and foremost, it was shock. Is it real? And I still needed to see Alabama confirm it. And then they did. And so lot of emotions. This is one of the bigger moments I can remember in college football over the last decade, quite honestly.
Yeah, and just the timing of it was strange. I just did not expect it to happen on a random Wednesday. But I was actually at the gym, and someone had sent me the tweet, and I immediately, like, first of all, I called my brother because he was at the gym with me, and I was driving him home, and I was like, I'm putting like equipment away, and I have headphones on, and I'm like, Saban retired, we have to go now, Like, it was just like such like panic of like, I gotta get home, because my work day, like, I work 9 to 5, but like, it's when I have a window, I can go for an hour and then come back and work till like 6-ish my time, and get things done that way. And I was like, oh God, I gotta get back. And so luckily the gym's not very far, but I was in a panic. And then also I called you, but I text Kristen Saban. As many of you know on this podcast, Kristen is Nick Saban's daughter. Her and I have a friendship. She also knows Kramer very well as well. I text her and I was like, dude, what the is this? Is this real? Like, cause I the same thing, like, we know that Lowe very much is his guy. So I believed it. I was like, this is true. And she was like waiting to confirm. She knew that he was heavily considering it. That was the conversation. There was no discussion of like timeline of when this was happening or anything like that, because again, that's how he wanted it. So she texted me saying it's true, and I was able to confirm that and move forward with that. I told you, I was like, hey, it's true. We didn't tweet it or anything because like that's not my job. It's not an insider. It was more just like for my own personal knowledge, to know that, and also to be there in support of her. I think that was like the crazy part for me, was that I was thinking of it like from her perspective of like, this has been her entire life, and you know, for that to change, and obviously they knew it was coming, but it's still, when it became real. And I think like we've anticipated this in so many ways as like media members, and there were definitely, in hindsight is 2020, like there were definitely signs of this. But it's funny to me that like some of the people in the media were like, oh, I knew. I'm like, no, actually you didn't, because he didn't even know. It feels like he really made the decision
that day.
He was like, you know what, we're going to do it today. He knew he was going to, you know what I mean? And he was like, 1 foot out the door, you got to go. And the other part of it that I do want to touch on, because I do think it's like an interesting thing that is specific to this podcast and just the view that we have on this, is that there were also a lot of rumors about his health and Miss Terry's health, and very specific diagnoses being like thrown out of them being sick. And I just thought that was in such poor taste, because it's like, you needed a reason for him to retire, other than the fact that he's like old and still doing this and been doing it forever, been successful beyond any expectation you possibly could imagine when he arrived at Alabama. I just thought that was so careless of people to not only like have people swirl it around Twitter and like say it's a rumor, but to have like media members like not specifically say, but like hint at other things until Miss Terry or anyone or Nick or anything were able to speak on any of that. And Nick did when he had that interview with Reese Davis, and he said, I'm fine, Miss Terry's fine. And it was sad to me that he had to say that Miss Terry was fine, because someone alerted him to the fact that people were saying that she had dementia, which Kristen addressed too on her Instagram, saying like, I don't know where that started, but that's not true. But that was another factor for me where it made me really, really sad, because it's like such a big moment for their family. It's a transition, all of those things. And it really humanized the situation for me a little bit, as just like her friend. But also like as a football fan, I was so sad. Like, I'm not gonna lie, definitely shed some tears just watching like some of the stuff that was made about him, just because like, I mean, the only college football that I've ever known involves Nick Saban in my entire life. Like, he has, like, that's all I've ever known in terms of college football. So it's a very strange ordeal to kind of like process, because it's like, all right, you've known this to be at least the staple, especially with like all the change going on in college football. I think he was like the guiding light, and I'm like, oh no, he's gone.
Well,
so
you know, you mentioned that too, right? So I just turned 30, not 40 yet. Thank you. And when I got into it and I started doing my blog, I was 22 years old. This is like my football world in media or whatever it was. And it wasn't media for a while. Really starts and ends with, like, doesn't end. I'm still fucking doing it. But it really starts with his career. Yeah. And that's weird to think about. It's a long time. but it starts like right there, right? And I've thought about that quite a bit. I do want to say one thing that really pisses me off. Reggie Bush made this comment. Other people have made the comment that like NIL drove Nick Saban out. Now, that's fucking lazy, okay? And I'm gonna say, I'll say this, and Nick Saban addressed it like this is not what is the driving force. I have no doubt that the asks of a coach now, without question, it's become a more difficult job, right? Like the assignments are different. You have to do more. It's less time off than it already was, and I think that's exhausting. But to imply that like Saban wasn't up for it, I think is disingenuous. He's 72
it's a little
years old.
It's disrespectful as well.
It's just like, it's absurd. He's 72 years old, right? And he's done the thing. So do I think that the college football now is more exhausting for coaches than it was? I absolutely do. I think that played a role. But to imply that I think it's forcing him out, like out of protest, man, you better have some you better have some receipts. Like, this dude has not like shied. Like he's done with change is adapt. Yep. And continue to dominate. So like,
and you wrote on this when we had that conversation. So also after I was rushing to leave the gym, I called Kramer while I was leaving, and we had a discussion about what you were going to write. And I think two parts to this. One, you definitely were like, hey, is it okay if I do like a first person in it? And I was like, absolutely. There's a very few times that you should do that as a writer, and I think this is the perfect time to do it. And then the other aspect of this is what you're talking about, where like you wrote about how he has adapted in every way, and that this wasn't this that the idea that this was pushing him out because he couldn't keep up is really, and didn't want to either. People were like, oh, he's mad that, NIL is the way it is. He has literally worked the system every single time. Like every time something has changed, he has shifted and moved along with it. And you wrote it very eloquently in your piece for Bleacher Report.
Thank you.
And it is important that people have respect. I think that was like the hard part about this, is I think we're in such an age where the like popular thing to do is have like the hot take or the like, hate on college, changing college football take, and to be just really dramatic about it, kind of is the way I would describe it, is like they're doing it for the attention. And it made me sad that a lot of the conversation was less celebratory initially. And then, because I think initially everyone was trying to find a reason why. Everyone was like, why now? Why now? Why now? And you weren't going to find one unless you heard it from the horse's mouth. And I'm glad that Coach Saban had that interview, talked to Reese about it, and really, because he said specifically, do not make it about that, because it's not. And I think then after everyone sort of got into the celebratory mood of like, hey, let's celebrate the fact that this guy did a great thing here. But it quickly turned to who's replacing him. It's going to happen this quickly because of the transfer portal and how things move. And then what's the domino effect of that? And that is the nature of college football. And I think in it today, and I think one of the things that I've sort of had a week to process, which is good, because I think if we would have recorded this the day that he retired, it would have been just more emotional. And I think now looking at it logically after a week and seeing the domino effects of him retiring and things like that in terms of transfer portal, in terms of coaching carousel, all that, this is the new college football. So if you're going to cover this sport, like, again, do like Nick Saban and adapt here, and like don't be so angry. Yes, is it flawed and do things need to be fixed? Absolutely. But I think it made me realize that I like unconditionally love this sport, because I'm like, you know what, it's messed up right now, but I still love college football. College football is still going to be great. I lost the head coach of my football team, left in a manner that didn't sit well with a lot of people in Tucson, and that's the nature of it. And I tweeted this out. I was like, you won't find me bashing Jedd for leaving. Am I disappointed? Am I sad? Of course.
No, he had to go. I mean, Jedd got like that. we'll get into it. But
have to.
that's
I'm
the
just
nature.
saying,
That's the
it's
nature of the beast.
Exactly. But I think it reminded me how much I do love college football for all its flaws and all the flaws that it will continue to come, because that's just, it is what it is, and you cover it and you get paid to do this. So I think that's the other part that came from this for me, was just a reminder of how much I do really love this sport, regardless of its flaws. And you can call them out and you can talk about them, but it's so interesting to me, the laziness of talking heads such as ourselves, that had sort of a field day with the Saban retirement.
I do want to transition to DeBoer. So
yes,
this could have been bad. Okay, this could have been bad for Alabama. And Steve Sarkisian, Dan Lanning, as this is evolving fast, and you're seeing these coaches tweet out like, "Book them," and here to stay, and so you're left in a situation, because if it gets past DeBoer, it becomes pretty interesting. Like it really does. So as this is going on, this whole thing to me is wild. So Jimmy Sexton, of course, is Saban's agent. He's also DeBoer's agent. He switched in the middle of the year.
He's Lane's agent. Isn't he Sark's agent too?
So, and there was another conversation. We talked about people knowing. I'll get back to DeBoer in a second. SEC championship game clip with Kirby Smart and Nick Saban, which was adorable, by the way. Smart saying, "I appreciate all you've done for me." Like, there was, boy, oh boy, we would have saw that clip earlier. If I would have saw that clip, and maybe people did, would have taken that as like the goodbye game from his, the former student.
Most successful.
But it does feel like, Washington tried to get a new deal done, like for months with DeBoer, and it was very deliberate. And I will say, I do wonder how much behind the scenes was there saying, "Hey, don't sign this," or whatever. Like, it's really interesting. Not even going tinfoil hat. I think it's the economics and the business of college football, and I think that there was a lot of this playing behind the scenes. All of that being said, I can't imagine Alabama doing much better than this. I really
in terms of hires.
I think in terms of hires, I think Sarkisian would have been great, and he shouldn't leave. He's doing his thing right now, and it's going really well. Look what they're doing in the portal. Like, good for Sark, got a new deal. Dan Lanning, I think would have been great. Who I would have targeted. This guy has won everywhere. And I think, when you look at, like, now, though, having to step into this job, and I think he's done a really good job of balancing Saban appreciation, confronting expectations, not doing fake accents, just being who he is. In all seriousness,
fired.
It's impossible to do this well. I really think it's impossible to do this well. And now he's assembling a staff of, SEC ties. He's getting head coaches from South Alabama and Buffalo. And I just think that, and we'll talk about the negative ramifications of what's going on in Alabama. I think it's a great hire. How you replace Nick Saban? You don't. Okay? You make a hire and you start a new chapter of Alabama football. But this guy is a fucking winner, and he's done it his own way, and he's done it through the portal, and he's bringing his OC, which is a huge part of this too. Like, all of the ingredients are here to make you feel good. I think if you're an Alabama fan, saying like, all right, I think we're in pretty good hands.
So I kind of want to touch on what you said about how he does it his own way. I'm curious how well that will translate in a place like Alabama, where things have been done a certain way for a certain amount of time and been successful that way. So I do have concerns about anyone taking this job. I don't think it's a DeBoer specific thing, but I think, the ramifications you were talking about is that there are a significant amount of them, Alabama players in the transfer portal now. Like, a lot of starters have decided to leave.
Yes. Or at least put their name in the
transfer portal.
But and the tone of it does seem like you've got guys that are going to leave. That is the vibe that we get.
Well, and the part for me is that this happened so quickly. So I actually was just having this discussion with someone else earlier today about how quickly we used to see coaching searches take a little bit longer. Now there's no bring for that. You need to have your guy in so you could minimize the damage of people leaving. because for those that don't know, the transfer portal window did close at the beginning of the year, and there's another one in April. But if your coach leaves, you have a 30-day window to put your name in the transfer portal. So Washington, Arizona, and Alabama all have
fucked. They're getting
all
fucked,
their players.
By the way. And by the way, real quick, sorry to interrupt, but like, and I read this today, like this is a really interesting rule. But by Saban retiring, the portal, like Alabama can't go replace other people in the portal. They're a product of really bad timing. So is Washington, so is Arizona.
You have now let go of a lot of names that were in there originally that Alabama could have brought in if Saban had retired. I know there was a conversation of like, oh, it would have been better if Alabama didn't make the playoff, blah, 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 all this stuff. But this is the nature of what, they're dealing with at this point. But I will say that is concerning to me that it's taken a few days and he's had a few days to have these conversations, have team meetings, all of those things. I could be saying the same thing in a few days about Arizona. And guys choosing to leave and the inability to keep them there is a little alarming. Now, that's again, I do think the players should do what's best for them. And if they don't feel like, if they get the sense that there's going to be, guys from Washington coming, I don't really know if there are, because a lot of the returning guys are, especially starters. I think there's 3 returning starters that were supposed to come back to Washington as of today, which good luck with that, Jedd.
By the way, for the first time ever, this could benefit Iowa. I'm just saying.
Yeah, you had to bring Iowa into it. You had to bring Iowa.
I've got it. Like,
it's good.
Like, but for the first time ever. No, I like. But do you? So I don't necessarily take this as a negative reflection of the board. I think that, like, Caleb Downs is a unicorn. I think. I mean, I talked about him all year. If you watched Alabama this year, you were like, "This is Derwin James. This is like an elite safety prospect." And of course, the connections are being made to Georgia. Like, he actually, this is a very unique position for him. He basically gets a free agency. And with NIL and everything else, he can kind of put his name out there and say, like, what am I going to do?
And like, you could say the same thing like Bond. My thing is that the collective hasn't changed. The coach has changed. The collective has not changed. The amount of money that Alabama is able to pay these players has not changed. So I do think it's a little bit. I think it's a little bit of both. I think it is a little bit of both, because.
But that's normal, by the way. And I'm
all for it, but I'm just saying it is concerning that, like, it's seemingly they're bleeding out a little bit right now. And like, the way to fix this is obviously get in the transfer portal yourself. Regular national signing day is in February. You have a recruiting class coming in that's a top 5 recruiting class, so you're going to be fine. Like, there's just things that, like, we'll see over the next couple of months how this all sort of turns out, what the expectation for Alabama will be moving forward. But if I were an Alabama fan, if I were a Washington fan, I would have relatively mediocre expectations for next season, just because it is a hard thing to do in just a year.
I think with Saban leaving, it's a really interesting discussion with the portal, right? Like, and we'll see what other impacts. They have some elite players on this roster that we haven't heard from. We heard from, their best 2 players from last year's class. That's not great. But when Saban was going to retire, like, they're coming to play for the GOAT, right? So, like, I think this wasn't, I guess my thing is, I don't know. Yeah, you have to rip the Band-Aid off and then see what happens. But if you want to say there's a concern about DeBoer, and I think this is real, like, is he a recruit? Like, he hasn't recruited like this. He hasn't had to recruit at the pace that Alabama's recruited. He's not worked with a collective like this. So and I wrote this on Twitter. The biggest thing is going to be, how does he surround himself? Now, the good news is with his OC, right? You're not hearing a lot from the quarterbacks right now, because they're like, fuck. Look at what they did offensively, even though they had, Isaiah Bond transfer. Like, this is an offense you probably want to play in. If you're Jalen Milroe, you could argue that this is actually a positive for your development in a really weird way, right? I don't know how
Saban Milroe sounded very Milroe. You sounded very Southern. You sounded Alabama. Are you a closeted Alabama fan now?
Well, every time I go down there, I like it's what happens. I'm just
you turn into a Southerner.
but if you're Jalen Milroe, you're like shit. This is probably good for me, and I know that seems strange, but like, so time will tell.
Yes,
I think the recruiting the recruiting though, the part of this that you're right about. This is a big concern because this is where Alabama has thrived.
I do want to also point out that I think, that we talked about how it's kind of lazy to say that like Nick Saban was, pushed out because of NIL, but I also think he saw what if this is the year that the playoff is expanding. Expectation is to get to the playoff is a lot easier.
For sure.
Expectations will be slightly lower, and you'll have a little bit of a grace period with this all starting with realignment, all of these things. You will have a little bit of a grace period. And I think he did have some perspective looking at it, going, look at all the changes that are coming. And to keep Alabama in a situation where it's still a dominant powerhouse, this was the perfect time for him to make this transition and allow somebody else to come in and give them a little bit of a grace period with playoff expanding and transfer portal, NIL, and get their feet wet without it being too far down in the game where like you have a 12-team playoff and you haven't made it in, you say it's been, let's say 5 years of the 12-team playoff, even 3 years of the 12-team playoff. And yeah, Saban's making it, and yeah, he's doing all these things, but then he leaves and it was like, oh, well, Saban still got us to the 12-team playoff. Why did he need, you know what I mean? Like, I guess I'm trying to say, like, I think from Saban's perspective, I think he did a very good thing for Alabama and for his successor when he decided to do it now with the changes coming in college football.
I also like how present he's been in all this without being too present. I think this is and I think there's a coolness to that. Obviously it's his age, it's his relationship with his school. He's going to have some sort of role with the university, whether it's fundraising or whatever it's going to be. He's going to be around, which I think is cool. Albeit, like, you got to be careful not to like Barry Alvarez's thing, like in Wisconsin, Nick's going to come in and coach a bowl game, right? No, I don't think that's what Nick wants to do. I think Nick wants to play golf, and
Nick's going to be on our TVs.
Yeah, and then probably work at College Game Day because he's going to be really good at it. I mean, that's another. I do want to point out. I read a story yesterday on ESPN about Nick's radio shows, which I don't know if you read this. I attended a couple of them. The Thursday nights in Alabama, his way of interacting with fans. Do read this story. It was really well done. I always found them very intimate, a little odd because you got like the super fans and people holding their cardboard cutouts of Nick and like all this shit. But like, it was where Saban, and it was cool in the story of Saban said he actually enjoyed this. Like, he actually enjoyed getting out of the office early, going to this restaurant, listening to fans, ask questions, some of which are very bad and some of which were good. And the part that I always remember of these is, I think they were playing Georgia Southern. It was an option team, and somebody asked about guarding the option. And for like 8 minutes, he waxed poetic on how a defense should guard the option. And like, I was in awe. And I think other people, he's really fucking good at it. Like, when it comes to talking ball, Urban Meyer, who is just, a disgusting human being, really good at this. Really good at it. He is. He's good at talking ball. Nick, who is a lot more likable, to say the least, is going to be great at this in whatever capacity he does, which will probably be ESPN and Game Day because he knows these guys, and I think it would be a great fit.
Well, and he's been on the McAfee show,
It would be a lot of fun. It's cool.
They've been setting it up.
He ain't going away. So it's a fucking big moment. And to back to your original point about where college football is as a whole, this does feel like an intersection of some kind of, a before and after, right? We're starting this 12-team playoff. We got all these teams. I just wrote about Arizona football today. I'm looking at their schedule for 2024. I'm like, holy shit, this is different. Like, right? Like, I mean, this is where we are. And now we do need to talk about Arizona.
Yeah. So of course the domino with DeBoer leaving to go to Alabama left the Washington job open, and the Arizona coach, Jedd Fisch, former Arizona coach now, Jedd Fisch left for Washington.
I can already tell you're kind of pissed off about this, by the way. I could tell earlier. Like, we have not talked about this at all. I left you alone. I didn't want to bother you.
Yeah, what's funny is that so many people reach out to me, which is totally fine. I just prefer to get my thoughts in order about this stuff before I react a little bit. I think, I have no issue with him leaving. None whatsoever. Like, the money's there. It's a great opportunity to be in Big Ten. Totally get that. Do I think that he, left a team that probably could have made it to the playoff and has an easier route to the playoff than he's going to have at Washington? You have your roster there, and I'm sure he thought a lot of it was the roster was going to come with him, and he was going to be able to get in the transfer portal. He's a heck of a recruiter, and he's a really good salesman, which is not a dig. Like, he's good at selling himself and what they're doing, and that's why he's been so successful in this business, but he's also a good football coach. So I will say all of those things. I have not seen Arizona fans this mad about something in a really, really long time. The level of reason on Twitter was just zero. Everyone was just really pissed because I think
pissed off.
And I think the other part of this is I know Noah Fifita's mom had tweeted this and said, they were sad about, the departure and things changing, but this is a lesson. And I know parents had been, texting local reporters and just saying, we're shocked and kind of disappointed by this decision. So it wasn't just, fans that were disappointed. I think people internally were pretty disappointed. The ones who, were on the private plane to Washington with him were not necessarily disappointed. And I wish him well. I think he has a major project on his hands. I do think that we'll start there. That Washington team is not the Washington team that just played the national championship. It's a totally different team, and he's going to have to figure out a way to be successful, recruit, get people there, do all those things. I think he can, but playing in the Big Ten, different animal. There's a lot you're going to run up against, even if it's Ryan Day's Ohio State team that seemingly, hopefully comes together. Even if Jim Harbaugh leaves, Michigan's still going to be very good, and their successor is pretty much already set in stone. So there's still, Iowa Hawkeyes as well defensively. There's things you're gonna. There's things you're. And by the way, your rival is also going there in Oregon, and you're gonna have to coach against Dan Lanning.
Well, I think yes, all those things you're saying are true. When I saw the money they gave him, let's peel back. So there's two things in this that come to mind. The money. You got $50 million, right? 7 years and $7+ million per season, which is a lot. I know Arizona has some rules on what they can do contract-wise, right? Yes. Like length-wise.
There can't be more over. It can't be over 5 years.
So if you think about that alone, Ole Miss has some similar stuff with Lane, and they keep constantly doing some weird shit with. I think 4 years is the most Ole Miss can go with Lane. I view this as the guy got life. And granted, we're operating so Arizona was going to pay him $5 million a year or $6 million a year for 5 years. Maybe that was a deciding factor. I just think not just you, but this is the state of the sport of, and it's very personal when it's your team. I don't have this. My coach will never leave. He will coach as a skeleton in Iowa, and we will never hire an offensive coordinator. We have other problems.
Yeah.
But the part of this that's really interesting that I wanted to ask you about was the Big Ten thing. Because I've talked to people the last couple of weeks, and you're seeing this with the hires at Alabama, hiring these head coaches from these schools, where they're just going to Buffalo, they're going to South Alabama. They're like, we're going to have you be on their defense. And the power two, right? I don't know if you're hearing more of this, but I'm getting more of this. I think the Big 12 is maximum fun. I think the Big 12 is going to be an uber competitive conference. I think it's going to be very, very relevant. I do think that, and I don't know if this went into his mind or not, but there's a nervousness of being in the Big 10 or the SEC right now. Whether that played into his mind or not, I don't know. Again, I think I looked at Arizona's schedule today. I'm like, this is fucking awesome. This is great.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, I don't know what factored in other than like the sport is, back to your original point, the sport is kind of a fucking mess right now. I think everybody's just sort of along for the ride. Like,
yeah, this is going to be the nature of it. But I want to say one thing about the length thing. Jedd Fisch will not be coaching at Washington for 7 years. So let's just throw that out there now. Even the 5 years would have been something. This is the part that does piss me off, that I appreciate that he's honest about, because someone asked him if he sees it as a long-term place. And he was honest about the fact that there is the SEC and the Big Ten right now. Those are the teams, those are the conferences to be in. If you want to be competing for a national championship, then that's what you got to be in, despite the fact that Pac-12 was there. But I rest my case. But anyway, it is all a factor, and that's why I don't care. Like, I genuinely, if he wants to go do your thing. And we can put a bow on Jedd in a sec after I finish this. We can actually move into the new coach in Arizona, who I do actually really love.
I know. I love the hire, by the way. I really do.
Yes. So I will say, last thoughts on Jedd is that I don't think there's a reason to be like angry with him. I think you can be, unless you're a player or a staff member, I don't think you really can be mad. This is a business. Arizona is not a football first school. The school is also mismanaged a budget by $240 million. Okay.
Wow, that's good.
So, so when there's this source, I'm not going to name names, but somebody who reported something along the lines of, oh, Jedd didn't feel like they were making it a priority and it wasn't happening fast, is kind of because they needed to take their time and figure this out. The money was going to come. They were just trying to figure out how and when, and the length of it, obviously not going to be as much. They're not going to pay you as much as Washington. That's fine. It's a basketball school. You're not Tommy Lloyd. You're not going to get paid buco dinero until you prove something. Yes, you had a great season this year, but like, let's go win the Pac-12 or the Big 12 now. But like, we didn't win the Pac-12, so like, it's all those things. So
there's like the perfect twinge of passive aggressive that you have right now. Like, it's elegant, and it's not.
Thank you.
It's professional, but there's like internally, I picture you like doing some like, not like I you know what? Like, yes, it is personal when someone leaves. By the way, when someone leaves your team, or like, you know, like Alabama fans are in their feelings about players.
Yeah, they're distraught.
Fuck. So like, it is very personal. Like, we just haven't heard a lot of that on this podcast.
I just don't. I also like want to remove myself from that, because I know that it's a business and I'm okay with that. And like, if I would be hypocritical of me to sit here and bash him for this when it's happening all the time, and just because it happened to my team, I'd be mad. I mean, I was fine when Lincoln Riley got up and left and took his quarterback with him.
Oh, it's
you know what I mean?
Content.
Like, I can't sit here and be like, oh, I'm so mad that he could potentially leave and take the quarterback. Which, by the way, I don't know any information about Fafita or McMillan or anything like that, but I hope they choose to stay. That to me would be the biggest win of the offseason for any college team. If we can keep Noah Fafita and T-Mac, I'll be good. I'm chilling. And by the way, Brett Brennan,
they should stay.
Brett Brennan, thank you for coming. We're so happy.
I want to say this Brett Brennan has won me a lot of money. Okay, this year alone, Brett Brennan is levered for the old day. They are like, with the resources that they have, I think he's done a really good job. He obviously has Arizona ties. He was runner, like, was in the running for this job a couple years ago. This is a natural fit. And so the name, I think, to most general fans is going to be like, who? For the degenerates, or at least for me, I've watched the San Jose State team, and I've been super impressed. Offensively, in particular, I think they're going to be a lot of fun. If you're, a quarterback and a wide receiver, and you're right, you don't go anywhere. Like, don't stay put and see how things are going to shake out.
Yeah, there's a ton of ties, and I think one of the things for Arizona that I will say that Jedd Fisch did a very good job of was bringing alumni back and really like digging in deep to the roots of Arizona. And with some of the staff members he hired, with just having Gronk around and bringing people back and having alumni on those sidelines and having them involved and making sure they felt special. Because I think coaches of the past really haven't done that at Arizona, especially for football. We do it a lot for basketball, but not for football. And to have ties to one of the greatest coaches in Arizona football history, and Dick Tomey, is like such a huge deal. And that, I think, plus his wife went to Arizona, his brother played at Arizona, he was a GA at Arizona. He doesn't view this as a stepping stone job. Yes, of course, if he gets the opportunity, if he wins the Big 12 and makes the playoff and someone's going to come shopping, sure, he'll consider the option. But this guy really has roots here. And I think that's something that Jedd didn't have. He definitely created that atmosphere for sure. But this is such a good fit, and I think we're going to be better off for it long term, especially with the financial situation we're in and the business that is college football. Like, we need someone that's loyalty is a little bit more rooted in their allegiance and loyalty to the university as opposed to the money and things like that. So it's a good hire in general, but mostly for the fact that like what Arizona's working with and what they can do football wise, contract wise, university wise, financially, but also for the landscape of college football and being in the Big 12 and being able to keep that roster. And it sounds like a lot of players are looking to stay, and like that only time will tell. We thought that of Alabama as well, and it's been a couple days and they let it sit in and they chose. They heard their offers and they chose, so we'll see. But I'm very happy that he's at Arizona, and I couldn't be more excited. I was down bad when this originally happened. I have faith that we could still win the Big 12 here.
By the way, you hit on a good point. When you look at the 4 playoff teams, one of which we haven't talked about, and I want to talk about. I will when we talk about 2024 championship odds. 25. Yes. Holy fuck. Sounds like the future. Washington, Alabama, Michigan. Rosters are in a state of disarray. Now, Michigan's gotten some good returns, but JJ gone. And Simon Edwards back. That's awesome. Like, that's great. Good for him. Like, gonna get some real play time. But look at all of the pieces. Look, these playoff teams have been completely disassembled. Texas, not so. I was gonna say talk about that in a few minutes. Not so much. In fact, I think they've added to it. But the sport moves fast, and in the instance of Alabama, I think Alabama fans are in a position they haven't been in a while. It'll be fascinating. But we should talk Michigan. So McCarthy gone, Corum gone, losing pieces across the defense, a lot of starters gone. Team is still going to be really good. They have options at quarterback. But and now we've entered a really unique point in this Jim Harbaugh saga in the interview process. Now, there's 2 things that come to mind. So he's interviewed with Chargers and the Falcons already, and I kind of love that these teams are like, yeah, we did the interview. Like, here's a picture of him. And then it's the other interesting part of this is the story that ran on Yahoo of, he's still engaged with Michigan in contract talks, but trying to like basically give himself immunity, based off of an NCAA investigation. If they were to find anything, they can't fire him. This is what the Bill Self treatment as well. Like, this is not like this has happened. So, has anything changed in your eyes with Harbaugh? Like, this is the end. How do you feel? Like, where are you in the state of this thing?
If I were Michigan, I wouldn't protect him from the NCAA. That's just going to cause problems. They've had him do, self-imposed bans, and then of course the ones that were not self-imposed. I think it's a good time to part ways, because I think this could get more complicated. We saw how, it was handled by this team well and the distraction of it. But if this continues and there's more stuff and there's more things and people continue to press on the Harbaugh factor, especially all around college football, I think college football is different in college basketball with the Bill Self stuff, because there's not as much pushback on guys getting fired. I mean, you watch people who were included in this FBI thing that happened years ago, and they kept their jobs. In college football, it's not like that. Like, you lose your job like that because of a scandal in a heartbeat. And I don't think it's fair to put this program in a situation where
you hold them hostage, basically.
Yeah, you're holding them hostage, and it's just a lot on the university. And I think if I were them, I I wouldn't budge, and I would let him make the decision based on that. And I hope he goes to the NFL because I think it's the perfect time. I think he's still a great coach, and I think he'd still be able to do a really good job at Michigan. But I don't know that you can replicate this year with these distractions, and especially because they did win a national championship, and then you have Connor Stallions, gloating around on social media.
Man.
It basically is like, oh, we're untouchable and we can do whatever we want. And I fear that Jim Harbaugh would continue to do whatever he wants, and that would put Michigan in a very bad situation.
No, this is a clean break. You lose McCarthy. I thought there was a chance he might come back, to be honest. And I think he should have come back. But good for him because he'll probably be a first-round pick and go get that money. All good. Great.
Crazy you can get first-round money without being able to throw the football. But
that is true. But the thing about Harbaugh, you've got your replacement. It's very easy. You've got now. Like it's really interesting. The deal on the table will make Harbaugh. It's like $11.5 million. If whomever signs it in the NFL, he could get a significantly more money coaching in the NFL. 16, 17, whoever it is. I'm just curious how he interviews because, I think Bruce Feldman may have wrote this week. Like he has a lot of love inside of Michigan because he's not for everybody. We've talked about But he is authentic, and I think people who work with him seem to like him, at least at the college level. I just wonder how all of this will translate to an NFL order. But now you got a national championship, and you could say, like, look, I'm a mad scientist, I'm kind of a weirdo, but I win, and he does. So, the fallback is Michigan at this point, in my opinion. The fallback is Michigan. And if they fall back, how much longer is this going to go on? We're going to do this thing every fucking year. So I think it's a clean break. I do think it'll be the Chargers, in my opinion. I think that's where he's going to go. And I think it'd be a great fit for him. Quarterback, a team that's perpetually disappointing. I think it'd be good.
Really I wish that college football teams tweeted out their interviews. Like we've completed an interview with so-and-so. Just because I would love that. The mentions alone in college football, if they were like, hey, by the way, we did interview Dan Lanning, so the fact that he said that he didn't even consider it as a lie is also one of those things that'd be kind of funny as well. But I mean, I'm not saying that's true, but it would put a lot of coaches into who was it that tweeted they were interviewing for the Mississippi State job and they tweeted something for their school and
and they had the geolocating.
But it's funny to me that college football fans would totally eat that stuff alive if they did that. But I love when NFL teams we completed an interview for our head coach opening with Jim Harbaugh and Bill Belichick.
The other thing with Harbaugh too, right? Timing is fascinating. We just talked about transfer portal opening up and all those different things. And so the deeper you go, the worse it gets. Now, granted, I think if Moore is named the coach, which feels almost like a formality, in my opinion, at this point, that would probably help. But it's, how quickly is this going to move? It's going to be a really fascinating thing to watch with Harbaugh. I don't think it's going to move that fast. I really don't. I think maybe I'm wrong. And who knows? Other jobs. Is Philly going to open up? Is Dallas going to open up? Would those be fits for somebody like him? I mean, we will find out. So it's very, very interesting.
The idea of Jerry Jones and Jim Harbaugh together really stuffing nightmares.
Would you like to talk some odds for next season?
I would, but I also would love to first talk about the rumor and then the other sources saying that this is not true, but there was a rumor that the NCAA football game was coming out July 12th. And they were like, oh, it's going to be July. What's the situation? What are your sources telling you?
So I talked to a bunch of people over break. And EA's been really quiet. Now, again, game development world, I'm pretty shocked they didn't say anything during the national championship because I had talked to people and I never got a sense that it was going to be a trailer or anything like that. But what a chance to re-announce your game. Right there, right? It feels like EA's hedging its bet a little bit. So there was a rumor July 12th, which is in line with what we've heard. But what I saw and the people I talked to were like, yeah, EA, and I think EA's communications VP came on Twitter and basically said, we've not released a date, but we're summer is what we've said. That's really good news, by the way. Summer is what they said. I think EA is probably hedging its bet on like, when is it going to be? Can we get this thing done July 12th? That's soon. That is fucking soon. And I made a tweet on like what do you call tweets these days? Are they called tweets?
I made a tweet on Twitter.
Well, it's like X.
It's X, but it's still a tweet. It's still a tweet.
It's so stupid. Oh my God. Like Nick Saban, like somebody just finished the 3D model of Nick Saban, and then it's like, shit, it's done. Like throw it. We don't need this anymore. So I have some concerns over this football game getting done in time because July may seem very far away, but it's not.
Yeah.
And the other concern is why hasn't EA said it?
Yeah, and this is your moment. Why are you not making
this
the most of it? Like
secret.
PR, publicity wise, it feels a little weird.
I think that they're kind of waiting to see how things go.
Yeah, they don't want to say one thing and then have to take it back, which is fair. I appreciate that.
It is, but it's not a great sign for how things are going. I do this. We do this all the time when we talk about a date, and then it's like, oh fuck, we should have said summer, not July 12th, or we should have said spring, not April 10th. Like this is what we do in the game room. So but the fact that they had a source on there come out yesterday, basically saying, hey, we've said this summer is good. I just want the content.
You just want to know what it's like.
I just want to know what's up. So I will continue.
They're gonna drop the trailer on like a random day. It's gonna be out of nowhere.
But I'm a marketing person too. You missed a golden opportunity just to tweet anything. A picture
basically
of
what I'm hearing
field.
Is that you need to be hired away from Golden
I'm not saying that, but I'm just like tweet out a picture of the field and say like, soon. And like we would go nuts. I would go fucking
I love
the
real life picture of confetti that we've seen over and over again on the field. I think we need a new one.
Yes. The guy that, by the way, tweeted July 12th, it's like a Florida, I don't know the guy at all, but it was like a random it's just funny. Like it appeared, it wasn't like a sports business person or like Matt Brown is really connected in this. Like, it was just like, it's July 12th and everyone lost their shit, right?
Yeah, and everyone was like, all right. We should talk odds now of way too early national championship odds for next year.
Now, have you looked at these at all?
Nope, and I haven't edited your piece yet, so.
So let me ask you. Oh, good. Then we can play for a moment here. Who do you think the favorite is to win it all next year?
Michigan?
Michigan is actually 7th, which actually surprised me. So I noticed that today. Michigan is 12-1 for a win DraftKings.
What?
They are 7th.
I'm
sorry. Let me adjust. They are tied for 5th. There are 3 teams at 12-1 that they are tied.
Still, do people have Texas first?
Texas is number 3 at plus 750.
Do people pay attention to the news and rosters? Who do they have? Like Ohio State.
Ohio State is second at plus 550. And I'm not going to let you say it. Alabama is currently 4th at plus 900, 9-1.
Who am I forgetting? Oregon?
Oregon is tied for 5th at plus 1,200, along with LSU at plus 1,200. You're forgetting a little team that's won a lot of football games lately, lost one recently, but pretty much has won like every other football game after that. Kind of a rival to Alabama. Couple national championship. Yeah. But
I can't believe that I forgot about Georgia. That is so bad.
It's great.
It's honestly, it's because like, okay, sure, Georgia should be first. But besides that, this Ohio State next, are you joking?
Well, Ohio State has had some good portaling news. Like, good.
Yeah, but again, whatever.
Well, good. I like your discussion.
I'm going to go ahead and put money on Oregon now. Might as well. What are the odds?
Georgia plus 340, Ohio State plus 550, Texas plus 750, Bama plus 900, then you had LSU, Oregon, Michigan 1,200, Ole Miss 1,500, Florida State 2,000, 20 to 1, Clemson 22 to 1, Penn State 25 to 1, Notre Dame 28 to 1. Then you get Missouri. It was actually 60 to 1, I think, a few weeks ago, and I thought that was crazy. They're right there. So I'll give you my take, my snap take. So I wrote about this for BR. Will be out by the time people listen
to this. Yeah.
I always like to do first a humble brag. I picked 3 teams to win the national championship back in August. I always do a favorite, just off the board with a long shot. Michigan, Washington, and Clemson. But Michigan and Washington. I don't want to talk about Clemson. So I Texas is primed. Texas, and actually the SEC schedule is not as bad as you would think when you looked at. Now they play at Michigan, but it's early.
Yeah.
And if you're going to play at Michigan, that's the time to play them. They have done some crazy ass work in the portal. Bond and go to Oregon State, get their best playmaker. This team's going to be good. This team is going to be good, and they seem like the vibes are. Their offensive line is coming back. I really like this Texas team.
If I were to say today, who I would put money on, it would be Oregon and Texas. Those would be the 2 that I would put money on.
Oregon was close. The other team I went with. So I felt bad going 7.5 to 1 and 12 to 1. Ole Miss at 15 to 1. And I wrote about this in the piece. I don't like joining the crowd, and I think Ole Miss is going to be pretty popular. But the way
for good reason.
Well, exactly.
And
they beefed up in every area. This is good.
The conversation around Lane for the Bama job, I was like, I will be shocked if that happens because of the fact that Ole Miss is giving him everything possible for him to be able to win now. They are the money that is coming in to that school and the collective, okay? All in. Lane has recruited really, really well and given himself not only big names, but options at positions. And people are buying into it, and that it's very much a win now situation. And I did not see Lane walking away from that to go to Alabama where, because Ole Miss, the expectation, is to maybe it's an SEC title. You know what I mean? It's not national championship, but I think if you are winning the SEC title, you're obviously vying for a national championship, but it's doable. And the schedule they have coming up.
It's very conducive to
it's very favorable. Yes. So
it's a good time to win now.
There was a lot of that Lane conversation when it came up for Bama. I was like, I just don't see him leaving. You're in such a good situation. I do think they are going to be a popular pick coming out of the offseason.
My last pick, my underdog, or my long shot, Arizona. Now we got to see where this roster plays out, but
that's so nice of you.
I'm not doing this even to I'm happy to have this moment, but I'm not doing it because of it. 70 to 1. And it sounds like the pieces are going to stay. Now, if they don't, we got to reevaluate. You lose your quarterback, you lose your wide receiver. It's okay, this team is good. This team was great down the stretch. It returns a lot of key pieces. You get a coach in there that should maximize offensively what you want to do. And then the schedule is wild. There's some teeth in there. You got Utah, you've got some. It's all over the place. But there's nothing on that schedule that also screams oh my God, they can't do this. Every game on that schedule felt winnable. It's a lot of fun to look at, right? So, no, I mean, when I looked at the value, you get to 70 to 1, right? Here's what you have at 70 to 1. You have Kansas State at 70 to 1. No thanks. Good team. No thanks. Arizona, Miami, Cam Ward, who knows?
I was just going to say.
That was kind of fun. We didn't talk about that. Washington at 80 to 1, Louisville at 100 to 1. I mean, you're getting into the depths here. Yeah. So I just think when you watch this team last, the bowl game was wild. You don't want to react fully in that. When I looked at the way this team played, basically for 70% of its season, and with a lot of good pieces still returning, we think, not one.
Why
not? Like 12-team playoff, like that offense is a problem if they play some. So
right. I do. And you talking about this reminded me of something that I wanted to talk about on this show. We are at an hour, which is hilarious because this is classic us. So I'll make it quick. But I was going through some of our AP poll videos the last couple of days, and I was looking through some of the comments too, because when we've done this live show, we do it every Sunday when the AP poll comes out, and a lot of the comments were about us hating the ACC, and I just find it so funny that we were just right about the fact that the ACC was not very good and that the committee didn't even respect them in the end in Florida State. So I just wanted to bring that up, that if you're going to be in the comments and you're going to get mad, we remember those things, and it was just really funny. It was funny to see that people were like, they don't respect the ACC. Neither did the committee. So
nobody did.
Sorry about it.
That's good for you, by the way. Pulled up the old. Yeah.
Retuning our skill set here. One of us is going to, go through and make sure we're getting better, surviving and advancing, getting better, improving. No transfer portal here. We're keeping the gang together.
Keep the gang together. Yeah.
We do want to hear from you guys about what you want off-season conversation to be about. So send us DMs on like things you want us to answer. That would be kind of fun to do in the next couple of weeks. Originally, we were going to talk a lot of transfer portal stuff in this episode, but due to the news factor, we have not. So over the next couple of weeks, let us know what you want to hear from us on the college football front.
It's probably for the best because the portal is, I think, still popping.
Yeah, we've still got lots of time. It reopens again in April, so we will be probably talking about transfer portal things until after spring games as well.
Next week, I really want to talk about Ohio State because we have a new AD, which is fascinating. You have Brian Day. You've got NIL fucking bonanza. You have a roster that is coming. Like, you got a moment here, which we'll talk about next week. All right, before we leave, any random shit.
I had something before we started, and it's completely gone. My brain is officially fried from this last week of.
Yes.
That's brutal. Not gonna lie.
Didn't cough one time.
No cough for the pod. This is the first one in a couple weeks. So proud of us for that. I actually can't remember if I posted your full cough. Producer Matt did clip that for us, so if I didn't, I will certainly make sure that hits our social media at some point in the off season.
I'm gonna say my only random shit. It has been so cold here, like even for our standards, like a high of -8 and shit like that.
It's been cold here for our standards, but I'm not going to tell you what that entails.
Please don't. It's getting better. Today the high was 13, and it felt like bombing. So we're on our way.
We're a regular high of like 54. So
yeah, I don't. All right, so Ryan Day talk, other talk, NFL playoffs should be fun. Good luck to your San Francisco 49ers.
Thank you.
I think y'all are going to win. We'll talk more playoffs next week, and
yes,
who knows what the hell's going to happen. Sport will break, and we will cover it, and we will talk to you guys next week.